And I am honored to call to the stage. Y'all, we got some heavy hitters here. Where is the Dr. Michael Brown? Dr. Brown, are you in the house? Dr. Brown, make your way up. Dr. Edward Bush is in the house. Make your way up, Dr. Bush. And Dr. Sabrina Sanders will join us on stage. And so as they take their seats, and go, come on, y'all, come on down. Dr. Howard's going to sit here. You all can sit here. We have water, but we're charging you for it. It's a tough budget year. So come on, have a seat. So they're going to engage in some Q&A, but so we're in real time and real live, and so my boss sent me a text, and I want to read you the text. So Dr. P says, when I introduced the panel, he has a poll on the Hoover app right now. So please be sure to log onto your Hoover app, and the questions are, what age did you first learn about Juneteenth? And where did you first learn about Juneteenth? So log on and take that poll. So I'm going to turn this over now to our panelists, and we will start with Dr. Brown, and we'll go down the line. They're going to give their reactions to what Dr. Howard shared. They may pose a question. It's just going to be a conversation. And then as we begin wrapping the conversation, I'll come in and then bring up my partner for what's next. Dr. Brown.
First, my reaction, and not just to your speech, Dr. Howard, but to Cornel West's speech earlier today, Dr. Parham, brother. What I hear today is a call to cause and a call to mission. And as a motivation of the heart, motivated by love. That was a theme, Dr. West, that I heard. And when you were talking about not just what you saw in those children, but you also reflected before that of what someone else saw in you. Coming from a church background, what enables you to see? What enables you to see what that person not even see themselves? What enables you to see that? Sometimes it's not a matter of skin, but it is a matter of heart. It is a matter of love. You looked on those children because of something already in you. And so I just wanted to, how can you make someone love? You can show what it looks like. There's more to say, but I wanted to say from my first reaction, that's what I took.
Thank you, thank you, brother.
And I don't know if there's more you wanted to say
I would
about
just say,
that.
I'm so motivated by Dr. West. He talks about justice is what love looks like in public. So if we're going to lead with love, I cannot look at any human being and not love them to be their best. And I don't know that we can teach that. I spent a lot of years trying to teach love, and most folks are on board, but some folks we just got to write them off and move on. But I think if you're not leading with love, why are we doing what we're doing?
I just want to say that how grateful I am to be in this space. It's a long time coming, and I feel like this is coming back to a family. And I say family because I'm a product of the California State University. I'm grad and alumni, undergrad at Cal State San Marcos. I was at Cal State Fullerton as a staff member and administrator, at Cal State Dominguez Hills, where I'm at now, and as at the system-wide office for 10 years, representing the 500,000 students and 55,000 faculty, staff of the CSU. And this is the first time we come together like this as a family and having this dialogue. And it's not just the black folks coming together. You know, many of us, when we join a campus, we would look for the Black Faculty and Staff Association. And it's not always about the work for the students, but sometimes it's the work for ourselves. And so coming together 60 years later for this is a blessing. So I'd like to compliment the trustees, our student leaders, Cal State Dominguez Hills, and the Chancellor's office. And I was really moved by the comments of our Chancellor on this is time. And we're having these conversations at a time where we're at this crossroads of what direction we could be going or we should be going. And we know all this information, but we don't necessarily always want to talk about it. And so while the California State University has been focused on graduation rates and equity gaps, all boats are rising, but there's still folks in the boats that are locked down are not rising with that. And we've done some pretty systematic institutional changes, including remedial education and redrafting our developmental policy. Was that a time? I thought that was a timer. Trustee Kimball. Get 3 more minutes. Redrafting some of our remedial education, doing away with some of these standardized testing, things that we've known for a long, long time have kept some boats behind. So while we move forward and we're addressing some of our underrepresented minority equity gaps, we're not calling out what we need to do specifically for Black students. And that would be one thing that I would push the agenda on. I remember sitting in a room much like this not that long ago, and we had a speaker that was talking to us about diversity and equity. And this nationally recognized equity speaker put a presentation up on a PowerPoint and showed the diversity of our faculty and the diversity of our students. And people were in aghast. You know how PowerPoint presentations and the visual can be real strong representation. Well, the takeaway of that narrative was this individual was calling us racist. So white fragility is real, and we tend to put power into that and not address some of the real work at hand. And I think there's so much at hand that we can be talking about, but we haven't been empowered or been allowed to, or we're so concerned about the media or the outside powers to be of what we can do. I remember as a student at San Marcos, we marched from Sacramento to San Diego against Proposition 209. How many years later are we still saying we can't? Proposition 209 doesn't allow that. And it's time to do away with the can't mentality and work within the ramifications of what that law means, but we can. And so I just want to share the excitement of coming together about this conversation, recognize that this is not just a photo op. The real work needs to happen. And while we're working on our graduation initiative and all these other trends, we need to create more of an anti-blackness or anti-whiteness, Black-focused student success support mechanism to support all students, including Black students.
Brother Bush, what do you see as the biggest challenges?
Yeah, well, Dr. Howard, brilliant as always. Let's give it up again for Dr. Howard. I think my takeaway is twofold. I'm filled with joy and happiness, but also real deep sadness. Yeah. Really deep sadness. The conditions, the phenomena that you mentioned, it's predictable. We know it. We've been living in that space. But yet, every single day, we find ourselves working in institutions that perpetuate it. And in fact, we are complicit and benefit from it. And so my question is when are we going to stop the insanity of putting 99.9% of our energy in fighting a system as opposed to putting 99.9% in creating systems? And so the question is like, how many Saturday schools coming from folks in this room? How many charter or private schools are coming from us in this room? How many racial trauma centers is being built out of this room? When I look at the collective genius and brilliance and resources in this room, and we're still fighting for folks to accept us, to teach us, to educate, begging them to see our students when we're sitting on everything we need to build and to create schools and structures for ourselves. We should not be able to sleep at night. But the reason we do is because we benefit from it and we allow our checks to keep us in check. And it's still harming our students and our babies every single day. And at some point, Dr. Howard, we got to say enough is enough. We can build, we can create, we can teach, we can construct. So we don't have this conversation year after year, semester after semester, talking about our babies being suspended, about our babies can't read or can't write. It's because we have abdicated our responsibility to teach them ourselves. I know it doesn't feel good, but I know I'm right. Like, we gotta stand on our genius and our brilliance, not just excellence in spite of opposition, but excellence because we stand outside of opposition.
That's right. So, Dr. Brown, you felt the passion for the loss in there, right? A lot of folks in this room hold important positions. We got provosts and presidents and deans and chancellors. How do we make it a much more hospitable place for black folks? What do we do? I'm talking about faculty, staff, students, and even administrators. What do we have to do?
Well, right now I'm challenged by my brother because my focus has been trying to work within the system. I'm provost of the UC system. I'm working within the system trying to make it. You're challenging me. So I want to appreciate that.
That's right.
That's the first thing I wanted to say. You have to take these things seriously if you really want to advance the cause. I took my job for just one reason, really. And it's actually motivated by love, too. It is how can you, see, I said maybe it is possible to try to affect some change in the system. Systems exist and are operating because they're yielding an outcome that no matter how people say they don't like the outcome, if the system continues to exist, somebody likes the outcome. And we are in a day, for me, since of George Floyd in particular, and being sick and tired, how can we help that system change, become more equitable and inclusive? So for me, some of the things you talked about, how can we make sure it is more intentional about diversity at all of its levels? How do we find the diversity that exists and make sure it gets through the system? How do we build new systems and structures by that system to create that? So I don't want to dominate this, but those are the things I've been involved in. It's tiring work like everybody in here knows.
That's right.
But that's my
I appreciate it. No, thank you. How do we avoid these diversity traps?
And you know, I think about the California Master Plan that really set the foundation for the California Community Colleges, University of California, this issue, and that was in the 1960s. Some of you remember that, right? Some of you couldn't drink at certain drinking fountains. Some of you couldn't eat at different restaurants. Some of us couldn't live in different neighborhoods. Some of us couldn't get married across racial lines. That was the time at that time. That's not today. The workforce needs are different, our students are different, the demographics of our community. So maybe it's time to step back and look at the system that created the higher education plan for all of us, and that it's focused on the inclusivity and equity and the needs of today's students, including our black students.
I have a question that bubbled to the top from the participants from HUVA. It said, the research shows that black students need black staff and black faculty. How does this occur if black staff and faculty aren't hired? How does this occur if black faculty and staff aren't paid a living wage? So you can, either one of you, but you're the headliner, so you can go first.
So let me say this first. I appreciate that question. I think all of us in this room, first and foremost, and we can start today, we need to make sure we acknowledge and shout out the staff who are all around here helping to put this on, right? The folks who put the tables and chairs together, the folks who greet us. Most of the diversity, if we're just honest, most of the diversity on all of our campuses comes from the folks who do the heavy lifting all day, every day. And most of these folks are black and brown. Most of these folks look like the folks in this room. And the problem is the lack of decency that exists from some of us in even humanizing those folks. I've talked to some of the custodial folks, and they walked out about 2 years ago. Our folks lost our minds. We don't understand and recognize their value. Yet we'll walk by them in the hallway and not say hello to them. We'll walk by them in the hallway, won't acknowledge their names. We walk by them in the hallway, don't ask. So when the next time they fight for a decent wage, we need to be out there marching with them. We need to be out there protesting for them, because that's where most of our diversity comes from, folks who help to do all the unseen work that we don't recognize. That's the first part. Real quick, Dr. Franklin. On the piece around faculty, let's be clear here. Number one, I don't buy this argument that we just can't find qualified black folks. There are more than enough of us who are qualified. The question is, why do we allow these search committees to be set up that have nobody who looks like us? Why do we have deans and department chairs who don't have any sort of vested interest in black folks being hired? Why do we continue to put an incessant amount of what is called black tax on the few black faculty that are there, expecting them to carry the load? If we're serious about this, we move towards cluster hirings. We make sure that we begin to promote black folks on the ranks in terms of administration. We just have to name it. Will white fragility manifest? Of course it will. That means you're doing the right thing. So you have to make sure that you don't see this as your last job. It's the stepping stone to the next one, because if you make certain folks upset, then you have done a job well done. That's what I'd say.
Any other reactions to that question? Go ahead, Sabrina.
Yeah, just add accountability systems. Every time you're going to evaluate a dean in terms of the searches that are being done with the departments, is EDI an outcome? Are you looking for that in the evaluation structure? Those are important things to put in place as well. Harder to do, but important to do.
Dr. Sanders? Dr. Bush?
Yeah, real quick. I mean, asking that question is like, in many ways, saying why Chick-fil-A don't serve more burgers. That's not what Chick-fil-A do. It doesn't benefit the system. It's not in the structure to have more black people in positions of influence. It's counter to that. So much so that even when we get black people in the system, you don't feel like you're able to be black, so you don't lean into your authentic self that would allow you to have the greatest benefit for black students. And so what I'm trying to steer us away from, if you haven't noticed already, is kind of this symptomatic approach to our struggle, as opposed to focus on the more systemic issues that is guiding and driving the system. Sister Sabrina mentioned the need to reimagine and redevelop the California Master Plan. That needs to happen today. First of all, people of color don't need to be guided by any other plans made by Master. And so we need a people's plan for education for the state of California.
A people's plan.
The people's plan. That needs to be coming off our lips daily. Let's develop the people's plan for post-secondary education for the state of California, that at the onset is designed with us in mind. And so then it's a different type of question to say, hiring black folks on a plan that was developed for the people. But hiring black folks to the plan that was developed by the master, it's not going to quite work out well for us in that scenario.
Well, that's our morning session.